All right, so let's get into the Speaker of the House because there is some rumbles going on in D.C. And the question mark is it going to be Mr. Jordan, or do we have a new entry getting ready to come in and change the game for crypto? All that could be impacting the markets for real. You don't want to miss it. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. All right, so a couple of things happening. If you guys have not caught up to a lot of the regulatory scenarios and all that, if you're new to the channel, go over to our YouTube channel and get into this playlist right here. And it's going into all of the things we do. U.S. crypto regulation hearings. We've been covering this for quite a while. Gives you a full rundown on the history of where we stand in crypto regulation. So at least you can kind of catch up on some of the things that are happening up there in D.C. Let's go over to our first clip. I want to just kind of open up with this one. And this is where it gets a little bit more interesting because of something that is happening right now in D.C., and that is the fight for Speaker of the House. Let's jump to our first clip.
If Jordan doesn't get to 8, if he doesn't get that low, and you'd still be like, you'd be the person that had the most votes, is there any chance that you'd be the default candidate? You could theoretically get back in.
Every single Democrat voted to shut down one branch of government, to be able to show the continuity of government.
Birds got to swim, fish got to fly. I mean, come on, you're looking back at that. Let's talk about what's really going to happen. How about McHenry? So should we do that? Should we make a special exception and let him do something for 6 weeks or 2 months?
You give Jim the opportunity. I mean, I went 15 rounds. He's only gone 1 round. And why McHenry is there is I selected McHenry. If something was to happen to the Speaker, you select who would be Speaker pro tem. But I always believed whoever you were selecting as Speaker pro tem would be able to do the job until you elected a new Speaker.
All right, so as you can see, there's factions within the Republican Party that are starting to become a little bit more contentious. This is the issue right now because obviously with Jim Jordan not necessarily getting the slam dunk, he's now on cycle 2 today. Looks like it will not pass again. The question will be, do they stay with Jordan or do they potentially go with this maybe backup concept around Patrick McHenry taking on the Speaker pro tem? If he takes on the Speaker pro tem, this could be a very good thing. This tweet kind of says it right here, kind of sums it up, happening in the GOP caucus there. With Jim Jordan, asked about electing Republican Patrick McHenry as a temporary speaker. Jordan's answer proved one or more reasons he is not qualified to be speaker. He said, no, nobody wants to deal with the Democrats. This is kind of the scenario that's playing out. And then, of course, you have just the framework right here, including Warren Davidson. Now, remember, Warren Davidson is very pro-crypto. Others that are pro-crypto that are sidestepping McHenry are a little bit surprising to me because I think when we look at McHenry, if we're going to see crypto regulation make it through, stablecoin, the FIT Act, etc., those are most likely going to be coming from a pro-crypto speaker or at least someone that can start to get into this. The problem that we will face is these omnibus agreements that are going to start rolling in on it. I want to go over to a couple more clips here. This is Tim Scott jumping on the topic as well. Listen in.
What's happening in the House on the GOP side of things, Senator?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I would suggest if I were president of the United States, I would be calling on my party to have a Speaker pro tem, make Patrick McHenry the Speaker pro tem so that business can be done in the House.
All right, so you've got Tim Scott coming in there saying yes. Let's jump over and see what Chris Christie has to say about whether or not it should be Jordan or Patrick McHenry.
What's going to happen here with Speaker? This feels like terrible timing for all of this.
Well, it is awful timing, and it's been childish for the last 2 weeks, to be honest. My own party looks childish. After this second vote, if he doesn't get it, I think it's incumbent upon him to do what Steve Scalise did, which is say, okay, it's not me, step aside, and let's see who's next.
Can it be through a pro tem status, expand some powers, or do you want a next in line done?
I'd prefer a next in line done, Carl, because I think that if you have a pro tem, what stops these 8 from going and doing the same thing to that person? If it were McHenry, for instance, who I like a lot, I think he's a very good guy. But if it were him, if he does one thing they don't like, then he's out, then we're back in this barrel again. I think there needs to be somebody that Republicans are investing in, that they'll give support to and let the person run the House. And I think we need that.
If there's no Speaker of the House, what happens next?
Well, Sarah, look, I think there has to be a speaker by the end of the week.
All right, and he is right. I mean, you look at where this could put not only the D.C. situation around funding a lot of these bills that are going to be in limbo, but more importantly, is what kind of structure we're going to see in terms of new entries coming in, obviously with some of the problems that we're seeing in the Middle East. Because funding will be a big factor, and you already saw Biden already asking for another $100 billion for both Ukraine and Israel support. And with that being the case, you're going to need a speaker. You're going to need a House that is in alignment with going forward. And kind of like what Christie was talking about, I don't know that I would agree with the sense that it's got to be somebody that locks in. Now, it could happen, but I don't think it's also the option that McCarthy gave, which is 15 rounds. This would take too long and affect too many outcomes in a very short period of time, because we are in a very unusual and precarious window of timing here, not only for a lot of bills, but also now with support for a lot of the global efforts of the United States, including what we'll say is the military-industrial complex. So there's a lot happening in D.C. right now. Twitter comes in. This is kind of showing a little bit more. I will continue to vote for our duly elected Republican Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who should never have been removed. In the meantime, we must empower Speaker Pro Tem Patrick McHenry to get on the work with American people. All right, so here's another clip showing some of the support. Listen in.
Look, it's clear he doesn't have the votes. I don't see the outcome changing here. I think it's imperative that we empower Patrick McHenry to serve, at least for the time being, in that speaker role, so that he can get the House moving again on critical issues.
All right, so this article kind of breaks down a little bit more of the bipartisan support for McHenry. And if you look at some of the details down in here, you got Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania already putting forward a resolution on McHenry. You've got Dave Joyce also told NBC, hey, we'd introduce a resolution on McHenry. Some centrist Democrats have also endorsed the idea of McHenry. And then Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries also signing an openness about electing McHenry. So is there a shift that is occurring right now in the House where McHenry, I don't know, does he slide in as the Speaker? I'd love to get your comments. Or is this more of a temporary scenario? Because it's not a great job. And I think McHenry is not necessarily interested in this. I'm not sure. Maybe he's being talked into it. But he is very pro-crypto. And that's something that he is, because he's put forth a lot of the bills that are currently in limbo right now. Love to get your feedback on it. Drop some comments down below. You think McHenry is going to make it? And do you feel like this is out? This was the surprise to me, to a certain extent. And that was that Tom Emmer is still backing, of course, Mr. Jordan. And I think this is the problem right here, is there's so many I won't say it infighting, but there's a lot of agendas going on in D.C. where, you owe this or they owe that, or you've got a lobbying party over here. This starts to maybe reveal the issue with Whip, the GOP Whip, Tom Emmer. And I don't understand why he would separate, because this is an opportunity for him to get what I feel like he's been fighting for, which is kind of the freedom of the monetary system and really understanding innovation as a core. So it all hits on the potentials of what he's been talking about. Why would he continue to go down to a speaker that I think will slow things down, and that is Jim Jordan? I want to go to another clip here of Jim Jordan speaking out on this as well. Listen in.
90% of the conference is supporting us.
To introduce a resolution to empower McHenry to be the Speaker Pro Tem on a permanent basis. Would you support that?
I don't think that's the right way to go. I think we should get a Republican speaker. I got 90% of the Republicans in the conference who supported me.
Would that help buy you more time?
No, I mean, I think we should get a Republican speaker. I've been very clear about that. I think that's where the conference is. That's what our rules suggest. So let's get a Republican speaker and get about the people's business.
So obviously Jim Jordan there talking about McHenry, maybe not necessarily aligning with the principles behind what the caucus, when you look at the Republican caucus, including Matt Gaetz, who kind of started this whole thing, they're not necessarily in alignment with where McHenry is going. So I do see the political bounds that seem to be addressing here. I also want to go to another clip here, and this one is by Jim Jeffries, who is the Democrat potential that has actually been getting some support. Listen in.
Are you open to McHenry specifically?
Our focus right now relates not just to any one individual, but to getting the institution reopened. I have respect for Patrick McHenry. I think he is respected on our side of the aisle. There are a whole host of other Republicans who are respected on our side of the aisle. Jim Jordan is not one of them.
All All right, so I think that kind of shows you the scenario that they could get some bipartisan support on McHenry's side. Granted, there's a handful of others, but that goes back to Jordan's position, I think, in the sense of, and probably why we're going to see Matt Gaetz turn as well. In fact, I think that's our next clip. Let's go to it now.
But what the swamp is trying to do, they're trying to delay a vote for Jim Jordan because they know he is not beholden to the lobbyists and special interests here. So I'm in this interview with you to turn up the heat on Patrick McHenry and any Republican who would try to delay a floor vote on Jim Jordan.
All right, so what this boils down to, let's get into this because this is an important understanding. Jordan and the Freedom Caucus, remember, Jordan was one of the originators of the Freedom Caucus. Matt Gaetz now leading this. He's the guy that put this all into play. This is a positioning of power. And the reason is, ironically, that what we're having happening in Israel at the same time, it really gives them a lot more power because now the potential of getting, whether you look at omnibus bills or potential funding for military expansion, et cetera, all that lies in the House, in the power of the House. That's why the speaker position is so critical. But at the same time, you've got all these crypto and blockchain bills that are in there as well that could get sucked up into this. So this is a very critical time in this particular scenario as DC starts to draw in on who is going to be the next speaker. Love to get your feedback. Drop some comments down below. We're going to continue to monitor the situation. I feel like McHenry would be good for the industry, but I'm not big at funding war either. So I'm kind of on a catch-22 here, but I would love to get your feedback. Drop some comments. If you guys are not over in the Diamond Circle, make sure and get in now. It's one of the best places to get additional content for us. If you want to catch me out there on X, it's at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.